how do we as independent filmmakers use transmedia to elevate our production pitches, or when we're trying to take on investments or get financing for our projects, how do we use transmedia to make that more easily accessible?
So a question that I got after the first round of Film Courage interviews we had was a lot of people asking me about how this impacts the search for investment. Independent filmmakers, independent creators are always looking for money, and that's just part and parcel. You have to figure out how to pay the crew. You have to figure out how to pay for the sets. You have to buy insurance. You have to do all these things. So money is necessary, and so a lot of people are out there trying to find a private equity investment into their film. And right now, that's very difficult. I mean, you talk to any independent filmmakers, they're going to say the search for financing is one of the most frustrating, difficult things that you do as a filmmaker. And that's why a lot of people pivot to things like Kickstarter or Indiegogo, because they want to crowdsource that. And unfortunately, most, the vast majority of things on Kickstarter, the vast majority of films on Kickstarter don't get funded at all. And on average, films on Kickstarter get funded at about $12,000. And if you raise $12,000 on Kickstarter to make a movie, I am rooting for you and hope you make the greatest $12,000 movie you've ever made. But if you want filmmaking to be your career and you don't want filmmaking to be your side hustle, then we have to figure out how to get beyond the $12,000 movie. And so a lot of my focus over the past year and a half has been working with independent creators on how to better position their films for investment, private equity investment. And so, because a lot of filmmakers think transmedia is for the back end stuff. It's after you make your movie and how to promote it or how to extend it or how to expand it. But I think you need to front load your transmedia plan before you go out to get investment. One, if while you're writing your script, while you're shopping your script, while you're looking for financing for your script, you could be extending your IP and building audience the entire time. Every writer that I know, when they write a script, they're hustling that thing for 2, 3, 4, sometimes 10 years, looking for investment or trying to get it optioned. And so if during that time that you're developing, hustling, shopping, whatever you're doing, if during that time, the entire time, you're using the tools that we have available, podcasts, self-published novels, IGTV, short stories on Wattpad, whatever it is, if you were just working the IP and building audience, what happens is when you finally get into the room with somebody, whether it's a production company that you're pitching it to for you if you want it optioned, or to a private equity investor, you can now have the data and the analytics of market pre-awareness to point to. Because when you walk in the room with zero brand recognition and zero fans, you're having a different conversation than somebody that can point and say, I have 300,000 people who love my IP that engage with me across 4 or 5 different channels. It's just a different conversation because you've switched the risk analysis. And that's one thing we talked about in one of the previous videos is studios, they don't necessarily love great content, they love low risk. And the way to skew the risk is to build audience. It's just to have audience. And when you have audience, all of a sudden people feel like you're safer. And so being able to walk into a finance meeting and point to audience gives you such a leg up, because now you shift that risk analysis into your favor. If you watch Shark Tank, the first thing that the sharks ask people is, how many units have you sold? They don't ask how much money you're looking for, how much equity you're trying to give up. They ask those questions at the end. The very first question they say is, how many have you sold? You want me to invest in your toothbrush? How many toothbrushes have you sold? Why do they ask that? They're asking that to gauge, is this risky or is it not? And so somebody says, I've sold 400,000 toothbrushes in the past year independently, is less risky than the person that sold 0 toothbrushes. And in the entertainment space, it's the same exact thing. You want to be able to point to the data and the analytics to be able to prove audience. So I think there's, when we're talking about investment, I lean into Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, you don't think of him as somebody like from the film world or entertainment world, but you have to understand Warren Buffett's a businessman who understands investments. And a lot of the people that you go for investments, you target for investment, aren't entertainment people. They're your rich orthodontist that's in your neighborhood that just has some money that you want to be able to go and pitch this thing to. They're not entertainment people. It's the person that made a bunch of money in natural gas and oil or tech stock. They're business people. So you have to understand what motivates a business person to be able to want to invest into an opportunity. And I think there's two major components that you need to have. According to Warren Buffett, you need market pre-awareness and you need scalability. And so market pre-awareness is being able to show that there are people that want your product. Is there pre-awareness in the marketplace? We've seen this in Hollywood for the past 40 years when they say, is it based off a book? You know, if your screenplay is based off a successful book, it will get optioned faster than one that's not. And anybody who's out there shopping will attest to that. That's why the optioning, the book optioning market, comic book optioning market is super competitive, because people want to be able to get that market pre-awareness and leverage that into a deal. So you need that market pre-awareness, but you also need scalability. So what's the market opportunity in the long term? How big is this? Not big, and how long is this investment? So is it a 2-year window of revenue? Is it a 1-year window of revenue? Is it a 10-year window of revenue, or a 20-year window of revenue? So how big can we make this thing? Is it just a one-off, or how big can we go? And so a lot of times we think about transmedia in the scalability aspect of it. How big can we make it? It can be toys and video games and TV and film and all these big things, right? That's great because that shows market opportunity, but we also need to use transmedia on a smaller scale to be able to shift the pre-awareness game. And so if you can show pre-awareness and scalability and just have a good idea, all of a sudden you have armed yourself with everything that you need to be able to go into to an investment meeting and point to you know the assets that you have as far as your pitch. And so understanding how your pre-awareness shifts the risk and how your scalability increases market opportunity is a really valuable thing to have. And unless you use a multi-platform transmediated model, you're not going to get either one of those things. So all that to say, we have to think in a broader term of what the IP is. I think this is the thing that Warren Buffett really in a commoditized market. So I talk a lot about the entertainment industry now being commoditized. And so what I mean by commoditized is there's a lot of people making similar products, right? And the competition in the marketplace is so crazy. We have a zillion things on Netflix, a zillion things on Hulu, Amazon, anything that comes out in the theater, network TV, cable TV, premium TV. You know, we have like it's entertainment is commoditized because there's so many options that everything is a little less special. And so Warren Buffett tells business people, don't make investments into products that are currently in commoditized markets unless they can shift pre-awareness, they have good scalability, and they have brand value. If you have brand value, all of a sudden you can survive in a commoditized market. Warren Buffett also says that one of the things that helps you compete in a commoditized market is volume and diversification. So this is just business principles. So Warren Buffett says if the market is oversaturated and there's like 100 times more stuff out there, then you actually need to produce more things into the marketplace, right? To be able just to be not washed away, right? Because we've gone from a pond to an ocean, and if you want to make a splash in the ocean, you need to have more of a presence in that ocean. So volume is a strategy within a commoditized market, just general business principle. How does that now equate to entertainment, which is now commoditized? That means now we have to have more things, more stories into the marketplace. Well, Houston, how can I make more movies? Like, it takes a long time to make a movie, and I'm trying to make it like one movie, let alone 10 movies. Exactly. You can't make 10 movies simultaneously and put them all out at the same time. It's too hard, too expensive, too difficult. It's impossible. So now we have to then use the second component, which is diversification. So now we have our movie that can be one touch point of the brand, maybe the tent pole of the brand, but now we're pushing volume through diversification. So now we're thinking about, what are my digital assets? What's my social assets? What are my immersive assets? AR, VR. How can I have publishing involved? How can I now push volume out on the front end and the back end and diversify that across mediums and platforms that now allow me to compete in the commoditized market? Why are we talking about this? Because the businessman that you're pitching to understands this stuff. One of the biggest failings of independent writers and producers and filmmakers is when they go to pitch, they think they're pitching to themselves. That the person on the other side of the table thinks like them. That if you're a filmmaker that leans into, if you're a DP, and you may love your color palettes and your cinematography, and you may have storyboards, and you can talk about lenses and all these things. This is what you love. This is part of your art, and you're going to create your most beautiful film ever. That's great. The odds are the orthodontist or the investment banker or the rich lady in the next seat doesn't understand that stuff, or even if she does, she may not be excited about it. What they understand is business, and what they understand is investment, and they understand rate of return and return on investment. They understand risk, they understand volume, they understand diversification, they understand branded ecosystems. And all this sounds like a foreign language. I can imagine all the people watching the video now, and I'm turning into the Charlie Brown teacher, wah, 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 because they say, I don't want to think about that stuff because I'm a writer, I'm a filmmaker, I just want to worry about making my movie. I just wish that person would have been born 30 years ago. Like, if they were born, or not just born 30 years ago, like active in the industry 30 years ago. If they were active in the industry 30 years ago, it's a different ballgame. Now, it's so competitive, the world's so different, you have to think about these other things. And so understanding, it's empathy. It's empathy. It's empathetic pitching. So if you understand what concerns that the other person has, then you will be better at pitching your project. You'll be better at positioning your art and your project for investment. So what do investors care about? What do investors get excited about? What do they look for? And then how do I design my project and my proposition in such a way that alleviates those concerns, or they hit the touch points that excite them? And so the more you do that, the more successful you'll be in getting these investments. So if you know that investors are concerned about volume, diversification, pre-awareness that shifts risk, scalability that increases market opportunity, why would you ever pitch anything that doesn't have any of that stuff there? And so, but the only way you're going to be able to get that in an entertainment perspective is using a multi-platform transmedia superstory approach. Because again, you can't make 100 movies. Now you have to have a plan to be able to use all these different assets. One really interesting story that I'll tell you that I think is really inspirational and really cool, and that makes this whole thing real, is there was a student that approached me with a short film idea. They were getting ready to shoot a thesis film to graduate film school, and they needed to raise $12,000 to shoot their short film. And he said, Houston, will you look at my business plan? And I looked at his business plan, and his business plan was give me $12,000 and I'll make my short film. I'm going to put it into festivals. And as I win the festivals, I'll give you the prize money until your $12,000 is paid back. That was the plan. When I read that, I applaud this guy for coming up with that, but I'm thinking again, like a businessman, no way I invest in that $12,000 into that business plan. Why? It's because, one, it's hard to get into festivals, and it's even harder to win. I mean, that's the thing that any filmmaker understands. It's very super competitive. So me as an investor, I'm going to look at that and say, that's risky. Like, it's very, very low rate of return. I'm probably going to lose this money. And so I encouraged this student. I said, I don't think this is going to go. You can try it. I don't think it'll work. I think you would be better off potentially just asking people for a GoFundMe donation. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to actually try to get the investment. And so he identified an investor in Florida that he wanted to approach with this opportunity. And this guy owned 7 car lots. And his mom was connected to this guy on Facebook. And they were friends. And so he had just had it. Again, this is not an entertainment guy. It's a guy that sells cars. And so for 3 days, we sort of repackaged his pitch. So what we did was we went and we did a transmedia plan for that. And we went from a product-centric view of the opportunity and made an IP-centric view of the opportunity. So IP being the larger intellectual property, right? And so we quickly, what this kid had in spades was a really cool idea. He had a cool creative idea. And so for 2 days, we workshopped the idea, and we developed a podcast, we developed a self-published novel, we developed a concept for a digital comic book, we developed a concept for a musical EP. He knew some people at the music school that he contacted. They said they would create 6 songs that extended the story. They would do it on spec for him, and they had a rev share that they were going to do. We sketched out the self-published novel. We sketched out a feature film and a TV series. And we figured, and they all told different stories within the same story world. They were all connected together in this really interesting way, and they all worked for one whole big puzzle. And so then the pitch became, I want you to invest not into my short film, I want you to invest into the IP itself, right? So now you, the investor, are a financial partner in my intellectual property. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take the $12,000 and we're going to put it into the short film, because that's what I need to shoot the short film for. But listen, we know that short films probably won't make money. I'll put it in the festivals, and if I win, then I'll give you the prize money. But the point of the short film no longer is driving revenue. Primarily, it's building audience. We're going to put it into festivals, start to build an audience with this cool idea. We're going to release the podcast that I can produce myself for free. That's going to build audience. That's going to get eyeballs. We're going to release the music, which is going to get a whole different demographic of people, and also build audience and build excitement. And if the music makes any money, you participate in the profit of that. I'm going to write my own novel, self-publish it. That's going to be on Amazon. That's going to build audience. But if that, like through the book sales, if that starts making money, you participate, the investor participate in the profit of that. The digital comic book's going to be up on the website. His brother was an illustrator and said he would spec out one issue for him. When that's a 99-cent download, investor will participate in the profit of that. That's also going to build audience. The plan is then to do that for 2 years. We're going to work the podcast, work the novel, work the music. There was a release window of like when everything was going to be released, and we're going to work that for 2 years while the kid writes the feature film script. Right, as it's being developed, as it's being written, all this stuff is going to be there. After that 2 years, if everything works out, the plan will be we'll have enough audience and pre-awareness to then start approaching production companies to option the script. but we're not just going to be an IP that no one's ever heard of. We can point to our brand awareness, and we can point to our audience, and we can point to our community of fans. And so now we at least have a puncher's chance to be able to sell the feature. If the feature sells, you, the investor, participate in the profit of that. And then, listen, this is pie in the sky, long-term thinking. If the film does well and we sort of have this like cult success on our hands, this indie success, maybe then we can sell it as a TV series. And if that goes, you participate in the profit of that. And so now it's a 10-year plan rather than just a short fill plan. But you can see immediately how that just became a whole other thing. From an investment perspective, the investor looks at that completely differently. It seems like a bigger opportunity. It seems reasonable, and this guy sells car lots. So we went. He has cars. 7 car lots. He sells cars. We went and put the car lot in every story, because what does the car lot guy care about most? Is selling cars. He cares about his car lots. So we made it a location in the story world, and we made sure it was in every story. So he works that up into a pitch deck. The whole plan is there. He does the business plan, runs the numbers for all the stuff, and then goes off to Florida a couple weeks later, gives me a call after he gets there. He's been there a couple days, gives me a call and says, "Houston, I got my investment." I said, "You got your $12,000 investment? That's amazing." He said, "No, I didn't get a $12,000 investment. I got a $230,000 investment." I said, "Really? How did you get a $230,000 investment?" He said, "Well, I just sat down with this guy and I laid all this stuff out. And this guy looked at me and said, 'You know what? This makes business sense.' And he says, 'I don't know anything about entertainment, but this makes business sense.' And then the guy said, 'Do you know how much money I waste in marketing across my car lots every year?' And he said he wastes about 40% of his marketing budget just on billboards no one ever sees, commercials no one ever watches. And he said, because this makes business sense, and because you have the car lot in here, I can take 10% of my marketing budget across all 7 of my lots, and I'll just invest it into the IP. Because if it doesn't work, I was going to waste the money anyway. But if it does work, all of a sudden, the business model seems interesting enough to where this could be a good long-term investment for me. And all of a sudden, this could be huge for me and my brand. And the fact that the car lot's in there, it'll market my car lots better than my regular crappy used car lot commercials will." He said, "People will come to my car lot just because it's like a movie location, and it taps into a whole other thing." And so all of a sudden, repositioning that project from a product-centric point of view to an IP point of view, IP perspective, that one had a plan of how do you build pre-awareness that shifts the risk, but then also how do you increase scalability on the back end that increases your market opportunity, and how do you make it make business sense for the person across the table. Now, if that didn't work and he was going to an orthodontist who has money in the next pitch, he will probably have to change that. Take the car lot out, do something else, right? And so you have to be, you're probably not just going to have one pitch for your IP. You need to design it for the person to whom you're pitching. Make it a tailored suit rather than the suit they have to fit in. And so all of a sudden, this from an independent perspective, this makes an independent private equity venture 100 times more interesting and more valuable than just the person that has the one script or the one movie idea or the one short film or whatever it is. So again, do you have to figure it out a little bit more? Of course, right? But I think the problem is there's a lot of people that want to achieve what other people have without doing the same amount of work that other people do. And so yeah, like we live in a time that independent creators have to do more work than ever before to be able to survive in a commoditized, oversaturated entertainment market. But at the same time, we're blessed to live in a time where we have so many tools that my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents never had, right? So it swings both ways. You just have to get out of that same mindset, see the opportunities. All of a sudden, if you're able to implement those opportunities, your investment pitch, it's a completely different conversation.